Today's August 14th, 2024. Current Bitcoin price is $58,987.
Welcome to the BitBite podcast, your source for news and information about Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency space. This podcast is meant for educational and entertainment purposes only and is not financial advice.
Man, oh man, Rick, we got some CPI numbers to talk about today.
I know.
Are you excited about that?
So excited. I mean, we kind of put off the podcast just to talk about it, right?
Yeah, well, and we did. But before we do dive into that, current Bitcoin price, like we said in the beginning, there's $58,987. So slightly better than last time we recorded. What are we looking at with our theoretical purchases?
Well, last week when we recorded, that disastrous Monday where things in that morning got down to 49,000 and bounced back up to 55. We're at 58,987. So the first theoretical buy back in October, 3,000 would have got you 0.0885. That $3,000 is now 52.20. I mean, it's not bad. I mean, we've seen it higher. We've seen it as high as 6.
Yeah.
And the other theoretical was right at the halving. Buying $1,000 of Bitcoin would have netted you 0.01564, and you're still sitting at a loss at $923.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been such a waiting game. I know we've talked about this before, where when we were talking back in March, we were sitting at that 73,000. We're like, man, 100K. And we got just a crazy weekend, and then it'll happen. But it has been a grind.
Yeah, it's been a weird grind sideways and down for the most part, right?
Yeah, and it still seems like we've been very much range bound. Like that hasn't changed a whole lot when you look at the general trend. Although I guess the range had typically been previously between 60 to 70. Now we seem like we're stuck in that range between 50 to 60.
Yeah.
We hit as high as 61 today before we had this sell off, based off some of the news. And I mean, the flows again, we had 2 positive days going into the beginning of this week. So the 12th and the 13th were both positive days. Today we're still lagging iBits numbers. But I mean, Grayscale's continued to sell off. They sold off another 56.9 million today. They sold off 28.8 million yesterday, and then on Monday it was 11.8 million. So they're still dragging us down. Although when you look at the 13th, iBit, the BlackRock Bitcoin Trust, they had 34.6 million that day. It doesn't beat what they did on August 8th, but that's the day that we had all that turmoil, right? Or the day after.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, and one of the last time we had recorded, we didn't have any numbers for BlackRock during that time. And it looks like the 5th and the 6th of August, BlackRock didn't do anything. They were null. But then, I mean, they're still accumulating. They really haven't stopped too much.
No, it's pretty impressive how much they've accumulated.
Yeah, look at July 29th.
Yeah.
205 million that day. And nobody else was really buying that day.
Yeah, everyone else is pretty much zero or negative.
Yep. And they were buying. They were continuing to buy. I'm kind of curious because we're going to get a lot of filings that are going to come out that are going to show some of that, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But first thing, CPI. It came in today at 2.9, which
down slightly from last time.
Yeah, only down by 0.1% because it was 3 in June, and so July came in at 2.9. What are your thoughts on that? Like, do you think that the Fed is going to consider that mission accomplished?
I think so. I mean, it's hard to say, but I think the market's expecting them to say mission accomplished, and they're looking forward to rate cuts more than anything.
Yeah.
And it seems like everyone's kind of all in on that, all across the different markets. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and the Fed really could tank the market too if they're like, well, we're going to hold steady, because I mean, last time we recorded, I think we were right at the end of that, and there was all kinds of rumors about emergency rate cut and all this other stuff, right? Because Japan basically was just like, all right, whatever, we're going to print a whole bunch of money and tank our markets, and people were buying up the yen like crazy and then investing it in other stuff. So yeah, it's kind of interesting to look at it from that angle, where how much of the market, the U.S. market, was actually propped up by Japan kind of tanking themselves.
Well, that's basically been their policy for the past 30 plus years.
Yeah. Yeah.
They've been doing quantitative easing since the 90s.
Yeah. And they basically, they do the exact opposite almost of what we do every time, right?
Yeah.
Which allows them to, help support our debt. And I wonder if that's just the leverage move that they have worked out with the United States, back and forth and really the United States doesn't seem to care about them. They just, as long as they prop us up.
Well, it makes, the one thing that it does is it allows Japan to sell their products to us cheaper. So maybe that's what they're going for.
Could be. We'll have to see. And I mean, when we get the Fed meeting minutes, we'll find out what the kind of the rate cut's going to be. I'm pretty sure we are going to get one. But I mean, it's kind of weird because this is the kind of news that you would really expect the markets to react well to. And really, we haven't seen a whole lot of movement across the board. We looked at the S&P, it's up only 0.38%. The NASDAQ is only up 0.09%. Dow Jones is up 0.61%. I mean, really, what's the best performer here? Netflix at 2.1%.
Oh, that's doing pretty good. That's basically the opposite of Bitcoin today.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Bitcoin, I mean, looking at the chart, I mean, we've had some weird volatility stuff, but I mean, considering where it was at yesterday, it says we're up 0.29%. But that doesn't count the draw up that we saw earlier, where we went up to almost 62 and then we came back down. So, it's weird times. And I think you may be right. Maybe they're waiting to hear what the Fed meeting minutes are actually going to post, where they're actually going to say, hey, we're going to do a quarter, 25 basis points.
Well, I would expect that, like you said, any more than that, and it's going to spook the markets.
Mm-hmm.
But everyone's wanting that rate cut for, obvious reasons.
Yeah, they want cheap money. I mean, nothing is cheap right now. I think interest rate on cars, you're looking at 7-8% for the most part. I mean, if you're well-qualified buyers, you're probably looking at 4 or something like that. But, I mean, it's not... That's not most people. Most people are going to get that 7 to 8%, if not higher, on car notes. Loans, you're looking at the same thing. I mean, we talked about that before, where some places are, almost 25 to 29% interest rates on some of the loans, and that's like credit card interest rates.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. One thing that came up today, and I kind of wanted to bring it up with you, is that on the news that, inflation was 2.9, then all of a sudden the United States government shifted roughly 10,000 Bitcoin to a wallet address and then ending in the letters NOE today, August 14th. And, the amount was valued at $593 million, which coincides with not long after Trump had made his announcement that he wanted to do a Bitcoin reserve. They sold, or they transferred. I can't say sold because we don't know what it's going for, but they moved 29,800 Bitcoin, valued roughly at that time at $2 billion. So we've got the federal government moving this Bitcoin around. Nobody knows exactly what they're doing with it yet. They haven't been able to say that it's actually been sold, but it has been moving to different addresses. So is that the reason why the market got spooked today? I don't know.
Well, or maybe a bunch was dumped on the market and became on sale. So
yeah, that's true too. One of the other big pieces of news I think that we're kind of anticipating right now is that, we're getting a lot of the filings for Q2 of this year, and we're seeing a lot of what the people are announcing is what they purchased. I think we were kind of talking before, and it looks like the state of Wisconsin is adding more to their Bitcoin holdings. We had news from Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley. they've actually added another 600 million in spot Bitcoin ETFs. The lion's share of that came from Goldman Sachs on that purchase that they had done. So, I mean, they're still getting purchased. And I don't know, we've talked about this a few times. You had mentioned at one point that we're swimming with sharks at this point, right?
Right.
And how much of this is suppression from those purchases? And then at the same time, you could look at it and say, well, how much is this propping up the market during this time?
I think it's a dual-edged blade on that one.
Yeah.
It's probably a little bit of both happening.
Well, and I mean, we had talked before in the past, you had seen 30% corrections, and we hadn't really seen that. But the last time we recorded, when we hit that 49, we did technically get that 30% correction. So I don't know if that was it for that, or if we still have more to come. I'm not sure. Well,
it kind of just depends on the larger economy in the short term, I think, what's going to happen with Bitcoin. I don't know if we're out of the woods yet, but it seems like things have closed. The volatility is down on the VIX index. But are we really out of the woods yet?
Yeah. And I think a big part of that is, like, right now, when you look at Bitcoin and you look at the future, especially within the United States political atmosphere, we know it's safe with Trump. We know it's safe with RFK Jr. We still don't know if it's safe with Kamala, which, I mean, the current Biden administration has not been kind to crypto. So I think
it would be wise to just assume things would be kind of continue along the same path.
Yeah.
They're not really that much different.
Yeah, I would kind of tend to agree. I mean, it's a train wreck for sure. I don't know anybody that can sit there and say that the Biden administration, the United States government, and the United States people are doing better now under the current regime, and that me and my family, we're not as good as what we were under the Trump years.
It goes for most of us, I think.
Yeah, I mean, everything just costs so flippin' much.
Well, didn't you look at the CPI numbers and say that when Donald Trump's outgoing month, the CPI was measured at 1.4% inflation?
Yeah, so if we look back at, that would have been December 2020, right?
Right.
CPI was 1.4.
And now we're celebrating 2.9, which is more than double that.
It started to kind of creep up. March 2021, it was at 2.6. And then it looks like April 2021, it was 4.2. And then May 2021, 5. June, 5.4. 5.4, 5.3, 6, 7. You get to December of 2021, it's at 7%. So 1 year difference between that 1.3 to 7. And I mean, we look at it all the way through from, let's see, when Trump got elected, when he came into office of 2016, it was at 1.4. So it held fairly steady that whole time.
Wow. Well, I mean, with the COVID stuff that was happening, with all the bills that were being passed, even under Trump, we knew that there was an inflation bomb that was set, it wasn't set off, but the fuse was lit.
Yeah. No, and you're right. To be fair, like, yeah, that inflation was coming regardless. When you have helicopter money, that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Now,
but it was just exacerbated by a lot of the Biden policies, I believe.
Right. So, I agree. I think there could have been some wiser economic moves that could have been made to kind of start to soften that early on, and like to double down on some of our own things that we could have done to help alleviate some of that pressure cooker that was sitting there. But, I don't know. I can't say for sure. We can't go back in time and change that now. But, thankfully it's not what it was in June of 2022, where it was 9.1%. I mean, regardless, we know that these numbers are still kind of fake, but
everything's gaslighting.
Yeah. All the way around. Everything is right now. It's awful. Awful, awful. And I know, you and I have said before, and I don't know, we still tend to get fairly political on this, but everything is gaslit. All the way around.
Yep. Everything's more about narrative than truth. So just whose narrative are you listening to?
And I don't want to digress too much off of this, but I do want to ask you, did you catch that that presser, the White House press corps asking, and I can never remember her name, the African-American lady that does the
Karine Jean-Pierre.
Yeah. Where he's asking her whether or not they're going to allow Trump to go on to X to have an interview with Elon.
Yeah.
Like,
I did not see that.
What can they do about that? Like, are you really so the journalist was asking basically for them to censor it, like for the White House to try and do something to censor it.
Well, the European Union also was threatening Elon Musk for doing that interview.
I'm just like, are you serious? Like, the press corps, you guys are supposed to be the fifth estate that's supposed to look at everything, like, to keep us aware of what the government's doing and keep them under a close watch. And yet you're asking the government, are you going to censor that?
Well, I mean, they're supposed to be the fifth estate, but what they really are is water carriers for the regime.
Yeah.
So,
and they clamor for it. So, I don't know, man. I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll wait and see what the Fed meeting minutes show, like how much of a percentage cut we're going to get. I do feel pretty confident. I'm fairly confident that we'll get a rate cut in September. I just don't know what it'll be.
I'm kind of agreeing with your sentiment. We'll see.
Yeah, it may not be massive. I'm guessing 25 basis points.
And I almost would say if they decide not to cut rates, it's actually going to be pretty bad for the markets in general. They're going to lose their mind.
Well, and I feel like the junkie is like, no, I'm good, man. I'm good. But when are you going to give me some more of that crack?
When are you give me some more of that sweet, low interest? I need it.
When are you going to give me some more of that methadone, man? I've done pretty good, haven't I? I've done good. Just give me that hit.
That's right.
That's right. So, anyways, is there anything else you wanted to bring up?
I think that's it for me.
So a couple things. You can still get your, you did bring up a good piece of news or a good piece of advice earlier, and I don't think we recorded that or not, but basically get some Bitcoin.
Buy and hold.
Buy and hold. Don't try and take profits or nothing right now, especially right now. Buy and hold, because I still expect this market to pop off. I just don't know when it'll happen.
And you know what? It could go down, but timing this thing is just watching it, it's very schizophrenic again. That's the one thing lately. Before it was boring between 70 and 60. Now it's like, what the heck is happening?
Yeah, it is all over the place. My wife was asking me about that the other day because I finally got her into Bitcoin, and she's just like, is it normal to do this? And I'm like, well, I don't want to say it's abnormal for Bitcoin to do this. I've seen it do kind of stuff like this before. It's just, this has been a weird cycle anyways.
Right.
But yeah, so if you're gonna get some Bitcoin, you can also do your self custody, and you can get your discounts, or you can't get your discounts, but you can get an LPAL or a Ledger off of our website under the deals page. You can also sign up for the newsletter and stay informed as we put information out there that gets you your self custody checklist at the same time. Just that's a free little gift for signing up with us. And then a couple things too, like the Ledger Stacks and the Ledger, I can't remember what they call the other one, but they've got another hardware wallet out right now too that they look pretty cool. If you're into tech, that may be something you want to look at. So go get you one.
That's right.
But anyways,
Store that Bitcoin.
Hide it away. Put it in a little aluminum lunchbox and bury it in the backyard. Forget about it.
That's right.
But make sure you know where to find it later whenever it does come back.
It's your treasure map.
It is your treasure map. I know. I'm thinking like, man, I've got to set up something elaborate for when I pass away, and the wife's got to find my Bitcoin.
Put it in Oak Island or whatever that is.
Toss it in the money pit. But thank you all for listening. We will talk to you all soon.
Bye.